was talking with Perlin Noise today, and you know what Perlin Noise told me? He said, why isn't there an action? I'm like, well, you're right. Let's make one. So, first I'll show you what I have. So this little FSM, this is just to create a grid. Okay? And I will show you what that looks like. So, and this is just to help demonstrate what the action does. So here it has just a whole bunch of white cubes in like a square. Cool. That is literally it. Now to get that, because the max override's got the 1000 before it does the infinite loop, it's like, oh no. So I override that, but 50,000. Now if I really wanted to, I could crank that up. Obviously the slower it goes. So just to give you a demonstration of Perlin Noise though, when I add Perlin Noise to that, I alter some colors and change the heights. And I get an effect. It looks a little more like that. So I thought I'd show you how that is done. Right? Now technically if you were to if you were a player, as you moved using Perlin Noise, if you were to go over here, obviously you'd have your own terrain, the way it would, however it would turn out, and if you went back, it would be exactly like this, right? Like Perlin Noise isn't random. You can add offsets to it though and make it kind of feel random. But anyways, so I'll show you what I did. So like I said, this guy's literally just, he's just looping through for this many on the X, this many on the Y, and it could be Z, Y, don't matter. 2D, 3D doesn't matter. It's just math. So in the current, like this one's just going to loop through the X, and then it's going to loop through the Y while it's looping through the X, and it creates a cube at the position of the X and the Y. Nothing fancy. Okay, now let's do this. I'm going to throw a next frame event in just so I can crank these numbers up stupid. Because hey, why not? Now obviously that's going to take a while to build though, but we'll get to watch it build. Right? Okay, well that might be a little excessive. Right, because it's going to build it. Yeah, okay, well, it's going to take way too long. Well, yeah, let's bring it down to 100. How about a little more reasonable? I mean, I don't technically need the next frame like I would have done it. Just things would have froze up a bit. But, and as you can see, like it's actually building the exact same pattern as we just seen, right? Sand, mountain, lake. Right, and it's going to build that whole thing. In fact, you know what? At 100 and 100, I'm not going to bother putting the next frame in. So now 100 and 100 though, without the next frame, it'll have that bit of a lag drop right in the beginning because it has to build it all. But once it's built, it's fine. Other than the fact you're going to render a crap ton of cubes, right? But like I said, like sand, grass, mountain, water, like it's the same. Like it's not random, right? Perlin Noise isn't random. You could add offsets to make it feel random though. But anyways, yeah. So, but there is this beautiful little thing. So all I did now, I made a custom action for this. It'll allow me to show you. So let's go into the cube. So in the cube, I am getting its position, its X, and in this case the Z, but this could be Y as well. You just need a position, right? Two numbers. And then I made this action. So I can plug in a position for the X and a position for the Y. So looking at a Perlin noise, X and the Y. Again, doesn't matter if it's 2D or 3D. The resolution is kind of how finely. Actually, I'll just show you. And then of course you have scale. So okay, first let's look at resolution. Let's go down to 32. And you can see what the resolution is. That's probably the easiest way to explain it. Dun, dun, dun. Mind you, I probably could have turned it down from 100 and 100. But doesn't matter. I mean, we're all so used to the weight, right? But yeah, so that's the resolution, right? It's like essentially it's trying to do that same thing where sand, mountain, like it's, but over only just a few blocks, right? So it's a much noisier looking map, right? So let's take that back up because that just looks awful, right? And you can crank it up if you want it so it's, you know, a much bigger, like, you know, take it up to 10,000 for all I care. Right? It's kind of more or less how gradual it is in between all the steps. Right? So the bigger number you have, it'll feel like a much bigger world. Things will be much more gradual. Right? So there's a much more gradual look to it. All right, so that's resolution. Now, the other one's scale, which is also like the overall size. For example, let's go down to 1. So again, this is just easier if you physically see it. We're in Canada, right? It's like, well, in this case, it's all green, right? That's super, like the actual scale, like the Perlin noise map itself. What? No, I put it low, didn't I? I think. Yeah, because it's like the scale, the map would be just absolutely monstrous. Right, where if I put the scale to, say, 50, I think we had it at what, 25? You'll see it's, you know, actually much shorter, like it's noisier, right? Like the map almost looks like it's bigger, but we didn't change the actual size of the 100 cubes, right? That's kind of what that does, right? So that's, I said, that's at 50, right? And I originally had that at 25. So I'm going to go back to the 25 for now because actually I'm going to go down to 15. Now, Perlin noise, when you go to read Perlin noise, you get a value between 0 and 1. That is it. So, well, all I do is like, okay, the return value, I'm going to use that for the actual physical Y of the object. So then I can adjust all the heights. Now, 0 to 1 isn't a very big scale. So, after we get the value, I just popped over here and said, okay, are we below 0.25? Then we're going to be blue. We're gonna do a water. If we're below 0.35, right? Because you remember, like, logic flows top to bottom. So if this one's true, we're going out this, and these ones won't read. So with the first one, if we're below 0.25, we're blue. Okay, but if we're below 0.35, so obviously we're above 0.25, let's go yellow. Let's do a sand. Okay, and if we're below 0.6, let's go green. Let's do like a forest or grass. And then if we're below 0.75, let's go brown, like we're getting into hills. And then with the last one, you also do if we're greater. So we're greater than all these numbers, then let's just go white and do like mountain caps, right? So then here I just say, okay, set it blue, and in this particular case, the water isn't wavy. I just set its position to 1 with the yellow, the sand. I also threw in a sample curve just to help dress it up, make it a little better. If I take that out, it'll look a little different, not really that much. But I multiply that value because really if you're just moving the height by 0.2 or 0.3, it's pretty freaking gradual, right? So I multiply it by 4, and then we just set the position just on the Y. We're not going to touch the X or the Z or anything like that. I'm just going to move it upwards, right? And then same thing, both green, same thing but brown, and same thing but more of an off-white, right? And so I took the sample curves out, so I should actually almost look a little more gradual now, like it should be a little more uniformed. So, and the water, I took the curve away, so if it's below a point, it just says no, we're all going to sit at one height. Right, which is why like the water, if you look at it, it looks like it's just a flat thing, right? Because they're all set at 1. Where these ones, they were just above it, so they all turn yellow, and these ones are slightly higher, so these ones start going green, then the browns, and then the whites. And all of a sudden we have like this map. Now obviously you wouldn't want to do this with cubes in this manner. It's not very performance friendly, right? It's not a good idea. But to use this style, and without doing cubes, other than say doing cubes and coloring them, to create, if it's 2D, you could put it through a switch and paint the tile map. You can create prefabs for, whatever. Like you can have like little prefab terrains and forests and stuff. So okay, we're going through, let's create a forest, prefab the trees and the grass, and just have them kind of linked together, I guess, and you would essentially have an endless terrain, right? Now granted, take endless with a grain of salt, because if you don't deal with floating point origin, that fix, once you get too far, you're going to have the floating point origin issues. So that would have to be resolved, right? So at that point in time, you'd almost want to for example, whatever this resolution is, use that as a size, so that if the player gets that far away from 0, like if their X or their Y, if you're 2D, is negative or positive beyond 512, the minute it hits that 512, reset them back to 0, and then your floating point origin is fixed. And because of the resolution of the map, the way it works, you actually wouldn't even notice anything on the map. It would, because I mean, technically, it's with the Perlin noise, it's a repeating pattern, sort of, kinda. So if the resolution's 512, at 0, however that's formed is one way. At 512, over here, so at the resolution, it'll be that same form here, right? So as crazy as madness as Perlin noise looks, it's not like, it's not random. There's a thing to Perlin noise of what it is. But it gets used a lot because it looks so organic. It's just a nice, it's a beautiful way to do generation, right? It's quite widely used, and there's different types of Perlin noise. I might even look at putting those options in before I put that action out, which I'm gonna put. I'll even drop this scene into my Discord for the patrons if they want to play with it, and of course the action. But yeah, so Perlin noise, and it's a beautiful little thing. Perlin noise can be used for a lot of different things, right? That's it. You don't have to just paint terrain. That could be drops, items. It could be monsters, zones. You could do all kinds of things with that type of logic.